severe thunderstorms across Queensland and New South Wales. Tropical developments brewing in the Coral Sea and potentially off Western Australia. Heavy rainfall continuing across the north. That is the weather picture for Australia right now, and there's a fair bit to unpack. Right now across southeast Queensland, conditions are warm and humid. Brisbane has been sitting in that sticky, uncomfortable weather all week, the kind that makes you sweat just standing still. Mount Carbine up in far north Queensland hit 34 degrees this morning with 80% humidity and a minimum overnight of 27. That is brutal. Can it get any relief even at night? Compare that to what is happening down south. Tasmania saw -2 this morning with frost across parts of the state. Hobart S been cold, crisp, proper winter feel, even though we're in the middle of summer. That temperature contrast across the country is massive, and it is driving a lot of what we are about to see unfold over the next week. Brisbane and the Gold Coast have been copping the humidity. No real rain to speak of, just that oppressive moisture hanging in the air. Meanwhile, out west around Gladstone and Rockhampton, they have had more than enough. South Gladstone recorded 185 millimetres over the past 4 days. The Calliope River went into flood, came back down, and there is still a fair bit of fresh water coming down that system. The sun is finally breaking through up there, but the ground is saturated. Now let's get into what is coming, because the next 3 to 4 days are going to be active right across the eastern states, and there are a few systems we need to track closely. Starting with southeast Queensland and the thunderstorm situation. Today, Thursday the 15th, it's relatively quiet across the southeast. Not much severe weather expected close to Brisbane. You might see 1 or 2 stronger storms out around the Goondiwindi area, and definitely some robust activity further west and south around St George, Charleville, Cunnamulla. That is where the energy is today. The more significant thunderstorm potential develops tomorrow, Friday the 16th. We're re-looking at a low pressure system and associated trough setting itself up along the Queensland-New South Wales border. Late afternoon and evening Friday, thunderstorms are forecast for the Granite Belt and the Darling Downs. Potentially 1 or 2 cells into the scenic rim and closer to Brisbane, but the high-end severe stuff looks more likely to stay on the New South Wales side of the border. Now, I need to be straight with you about Friday's forecast. The thunderstorm chance is there, no question. But this isn't a rock-solid severe weather setup. The convective available potential energy that is the fuel these storms need is sitting between 1,000 and 1,500 joules per kilogram across most of southeast Queensland. You really want to be above that 1,000 mark to guarantee robust thunderstorm development. And when we're re-teetering right on that edge, it knocks the teeth out of the forecast a bit. There are some favourable elements. Dew points are decent, wind shear is reasonable. But there are also inconsistencies between the models, and a few key ingredients just aren't lining up perfectly. So Friday could produce some solid thunderstorms, particularly across the Granite Belt, Darling Downs, and into northeastern New South Wales. But ultra high-end severe weather across southeast Queensland looks unlikely at this stage. Saturday the 17th is where things get interesting. There is a southeasterly change forecast to push up the New South Wales coast through Friday night and Saturday, reaching northeastern New South Wales and potentially southeast Queensland by Saturday afternoon. Now, typically when we get a strong southeasterly change pushing through, it can trigger powerful sea breeze thunderstorms. Many of you remember November 24th last year. Those monster storms that ripped through Brisbane were triggered by a very strong southeasterly change with wind gusts around 50 to 60 kilometres per hour. This Saturday's change is much weaker. We're re-looking at wind gusts between 30 and 40 kilometres per hour. That is a weak trigger, and as such, thunderstorms are expected to be comparatively weaker. However, the convective available potential energy on Saturday looks better than Friday. Models are showing around 2,000 joules per kilogram, and dew points are forecast to push up towards 24 or 25 degrees. That's decent moisture. The problem is wind shear further north. It's sitting around 35 to 40 knots. That is good, but not excellent. So Saturday is a bit of a mixed bag. There are elements that could come together for some moderate severe thunderstorms with large hail, damaging winds and heavy rainfall. But ultra high-end severe weather is out of the question. We could definitely see a couple of robust thunderstorms through southeast Queensland on Saturday afternoon and evening, but I'm not expecting anything extraordinary. Sunday the 18th, showers and thunderstorms remain possible as those high dew points linger. Then Monday and Tuesday should see things ease off and clear out. A much drier pattern returns to southeast Queensland until about Thursday or Friday, the 22nd or 23rd. Around Australia Day, the 26th, thunderstorm chances begin to resurge again across northeastern New South Wales and southeast Queensland. We'll be watching that period closely for potential severe weather development, but as of now, nothing crazy is expected. For New South Wales, the forecast is complex. Today, Thursday, scattered showers and storms across the northeast. Friday sees the development of that low pressure system along the border I mentioned earlier. Northeastern New South Wales is where the more significant severe thunderstorm potential sits on Friday. Saturday, as that southeasterly change pushes through, thunderstorms are possible along the coast and ranges. But here's the critical bit for New South Wales, particularly inland areas. There has been severe thunderstorm activity through western New South Wales recently, with reports of hail near Canberra and supercells near Dubbo. Some areas copped 5 centimetres of hail. That is significant. The pattern remains active through the weekend, so if you are in inland New South Wales, keep an eye on warnings from the Bureau of Meteorology. Now let S shift our focus north. Tropical Queensland and the Northern Territory, this is peak wet season, and we're seeing exactly what you'd expect. Heavy rainfall, thunderstorms and tropical low pressure systems developing across the region. Right now, there's a strong area of tropical low pressure over northern Queensland. We've also got another area of low pressure out in the Coral Sea. Both of these systems have potential for development over the next couple of weeks. Additionally, the remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Koji are tracking across the top end and are expected to redevelop into another tropical cyclone off Western Australia. I'll get to that in a moment. For far north Queensland and the Cape York Peninsula, conditions have been wet. Not consistently bucketing down, but moisture is high, humidity is oppressive, and scattered thunderstorms continue. Mount Carbine reported intense heat this morning with swarms of biting black flies, which tells you how humid it's been. When the humidity gets that high, the bugs come out in force. Over the next few days, we're expecting an uptick in shower and thunderstorm activity right across the far northern reaches of Queensland. The monsoon trough is strengthening, and we are looking at a broad area of low pressure developing offshore from Cape York sometime between the 20th and the 23rd of January. This system is forecast to track generally southward, bringing heavy rainfall as it moves along parts of the north and far north Queensland coast. I am expecting a 2 or 3 day wet period to really tick up across far north Queensland, particularly through the Cape York Peninsula. The difficulty right now is pinning down exactly how much rain, when it arrives, and how it's delivered. It could be steady and persistent over a couple of days, or it could come thick and fast in a shorter burst. The models are still flip-flopping, which is a clear sign of uncertainty. South of Cairns, this forecast remains relatively uncertain. While a wet period is more than likely across Cape York, anywhere south of Cairns isn't locked in for significant rainfall just yet. Watch but don't act. Stay on top of the forecast, but no need to prepare for flooding at this stage. Darwin and the top end are in for heavy rainfall this weekend. The remnants of tropical cyclone Koji are moving into the Northern Territory, and as this system taps into moisture from the Timor and Arafura seas, we're expecting it to begin redeveloping. Saturday and Sunday, lots of heavy rain is forecast around Darwin. The system is then expected to track westward towards Western Australia and out into the Indian Ocean, where it's forecast to strengthen back to tropical cyclone status. This brings me to Western Australia, and this is important for anyone along that northwest coast. The remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Koji are forecast to track through the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, skirt the Kimberley coastline between the 20th and 22nd of January, then move offshore from Western Australia, where it's expected to intensify back to tropical cyclone strength. Now, there's uncertainty here. The system could move further north and head out into the Indian Ocean towards the graveyard where cyclones go to die. Or it could hug the Kimberley coast and interact with land before heading towards the Pilbara coast sometime just before Australia Day. Here is why this matters. Sea surface temperatures offshore from the Western Australian coast are exceedingly warm right now. We're talking 30 to 31 degrees, pushing 32 degrees close to shore. That is extremely warm, a lot of energy for a tropical cyclone to tap into. Additionally, the jet stream has moved well south because we are now well into January. It's tracking over the wheat belt regions rather than the Gascoyne and Pilbara like it does in November and December. That means a tropical cyclone moving into the Indian Ocean now has a very favourable environment for the next couple of months. The forecast models are showing a relatively small tropical cyclone developing. Small cyclones are particularly susceptible to rapid intensification when they move into favourable environments. We saw this with Cyclone Koji when it formed in the Coral Sea. It intensified quickly before making landfall on Queensland. If a similar scenario plays out off Western Australia, significant intensification is possible. I am not putting Western Australia under any watches or warnings yet, but if you live between Broome, Karratha, Onslow, Port Hedland and surrounding communities, keep an eye on the forecast. We're now looking at an increased chance of a tropical cyclone threatening this portion of the Western Australian coastline by this time next week. No need to prepare or panic right now, but watch the forecast closely. By the end of this weekend, we should have definitive answers about what to expect. For those in Western Australia who aren't familiar with cyclone preparation, now is a good time to refresh your knowledge. Secure loose items around the property. Stock up on essentials like water, non-perishable food, batteries, torches. Make sure you know your cyclone category ratings and what they mean. If you are in a caravan or temporary structure, identify solid shelter you can relocate to if needed. Back to the current rainfall situation across central Queensland. Significant rainfall accumulations have occurred over the past couple of weeks, particularly around the Blackwater region and into the Channel Country. There was a severe thunderstorm warning earlier today for southwestern Queensland with heavy rainfall, lightning and strong wind gusts. The ground is saturated across many areas, rivers are running high and minor to moderate flooding continues in some locations. Townsville has been overcast but relatively dry recently. The humidity is terrible, as many of you up there have been reporting. That oppressive can-to-breathe kind of humidity. Relief is coming, but not for a few more days yet. For South Australia and Victoria, conditions have been relatively benign. Adelaide S had perfect weather recently, sitting around 24 degrees and sunny while everyone else either bakes or freezes. That pleasant pattern continues for another few days before a change moves through early next week. Melbourne hit 32 degrees recently. Bloody hot for this time of year, spring weather that feels more like midsummer. There were severe thunderstorms through parts of Victoria and southern New South Wales in recent days. The Illawarra coast saw wind gusts up to 109 kilometres per hour and confirmed 8 centimetre hail fell near Bowral. Those are significant storms and the pattern remains active. Tasmania S been on the cold side, as I mentioned earlier. Frost across the northern areas. Overnight minimums below zero in some spots. If you are in Tassie and you've been lighting the fire in the mornings, that cold air is just the beginning. There is more to come over the next week. Perth and the southwest of Western Australia have been bone dry. 3 months with bugger all rain. Gardens are struggling, dams are getting low. That dry spell should break early next week when a series of fronts move through, bringing some decent rainfall to the southwest. Now, a few practical considerations across the board. For those dealing with the humidity in Queensland and the top end, check on elderly neighbours and mates. High humidity puts strain on people who aren't used to it, and dehydration happens faster than you think. Keep fluids up, limit outdoor activity during peak heat, and if you've got livestock, make sure they have access to shade and water. For anyone in thunderstorm-prone areas over the next few days, particularly New South Wales and southern Queensland, keep an eye on Bureau of Meteorology warnings. Severe thunderstorms can develop quickly, and while we're not expecting ultra-high-end severe weather, damaging winds, large hail and heavy rainfall are all possible. If you're driving, avoid floodwater. If it's flooded, forget it. That is the SES message, and it is worth remembering. Western Australia, as I said, monitor the tropical cyclone forecast closely. If this system develops as expected, you'll have several days' notice, but wait until the last minute to prepare. Once cyclone watches and warnings are issued, supermarkets get busy, supplies run short, and roads can become congested if evacuations are ordered. For far north Queensland, with that tropical low expected to develop around the 20th, keep an eye on rainfall totals and river levels. The ground is already saturated in many areas from previous rainfall, so even moderate additional rain could lead to localised flooding. Looking at the broader pattern, we're now well into the peak of wet season across northern Australia. This is when we typically see the most active tropical cyclone season, the heaviest monsoon rainfall, and the most significant flooding across the north. From now through until about April, this pattern continues. Some years are more active than others, and this year is shaping up to be relatively active given the warm sea surface temperatures and favourable upper level conditions. El Niño and La Niña aren't strongly in play right now. We're in a relatively neutral pattern, which means conditions are being driven more by regional factors like sea surface temperatures, the monsoon trough position, and upper level wind patterns, rather than large-scale climate drivers. That makes forecasting a bit trickier beyond 7 to 10 days, as small shifts in these regional patterns can produce big changes in where rain falls and how systems develop. The Indian Ocean dipole is also relatively neutral at the moment, which is typical for this time of year. It tends to be more influential during our winter and spring months, but right now it's not playing a major role in our weather patterns. What we are seeing is the influence of the Madden-Julian oscillation, which is a pattern of enhanced thunderstorm activity that moves eastward around the tropics every 30 to 60 days. It's currently in a phase that enhancing convection across the maritime continent and northern Australia, which is contributing to the increased shower and thunderstorm activity we're seeing. As the MJO continues to propagate eastward over the next couple of weeks, we may see a temporary lull in tropical activity, but it's difficult to say with certainty. For historical context, this pattern isn't unprecedented. We've seen active wet seasons before. The 2010 to 2011 wet season produced the Queensland floods that devastated Brisbane and Toowoomba. That was an extreme event driven by a strong La Niña. We're not in that kind of setup right now, but the conditions are favourable for above average rainfall across the north and active tropical cyclone development. Cyclone Yasi in 2011 was a Category 5 system that crossed the Queensland coast near Mission Beach. Winds up to 285 kilometres per hour, massive storm surge, widespread devastation. Cyclone Larry in 2006 was another powerful system that hit far north Queensland. And of course, Cyclone Tracy remains the benchmark. Christmas Eve 1974, winds up to 217 kilometres per hour, Darwin destroyed. That was a small, intense cyclone that rapidly intensified just before making landfall. The potential system off Western Australia 1T reached Tracy levels, but if it does develop into a small, intense cyclone in very warm waters with low wind shear, significant intensification is possible. That is why monitoring the forecast closely is important. For the thunderstorm activity across the eastern states, the November 2024 storms that hit Brisbane are fresh in everyone's memory. Those were triggered by a strong southeasterly change and they produced significant damage. The current setup isn't as conducive to that kind of extreme event, but moderate severe thunderstorms are definitely on the table. In summary, here is what you need to know. Southeast Queensland and northeastern New South Wales, scattered thunderstorms today and tomorrow, more organised activity possible Saturday with the southeasterly change. Don T expect ultra-high-end severe weather, but damaging winds, large hail and heavy rain are possible. Sunday through Tuesday, showers and storms ease off. Around Australia Day, activity picks up again. Far north Queensland and Cape York Peninsula, increased shower and thunderstorm activity from the 20th onwards as a tropical low develops offshore. Uncertainty remains about rainfall totals and timing. Monitor the forecast closely if you are in this region. Northern Territory, particularly Darwin, heavy rainfall this weekend as the remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Koji move through and tap into monsoon moisture. Expect significant rain Saturday and Sunday. Western Australia, Kimberley and Pilbara coasts, increased chance of tropical cyclone development by late next week. Sea surface temperatures are very warm. Environment is favourable. Monitor forecast closely. No need to panic, but be prepared. New South Wales, active severe thunderstorm pattern continues through the weekend, particularly inland areas. Hail and damaging winds possible. Victoria and South Australia, relatively quiet weather continues before a change early next week. Tasmania, cold conditions continue with overnight frosts in some areas. This is an active weather pattern right across Australia. It has peak wet season in the north, peak summer in the south, and we're re-seeing the full spectrum of Australian weather playing out. Stay informed, monitor Bureau of Meteorology warnings, and take appropriate precautions for your region. No need for panic, but respect the weather. You've all lived through significant events before. Ash Wednesday, Cyclone Tracy, the 2011 floods, Black Summer bushfires. You know how quickly weather can turn serious, and you know the importance of preparation. That experience matters. Use it. Keep an eye on the forecast over the next few days, particularly if you're in one of the active regions I've mentioned. Updates will be available regularly as these systems develop and move. For those in potential cyclone-affected areas, remember that cyclones are forecast days in advance. You'll have time to prepare once watches and warnings are issued. That's the situation as it stands. Complex, active, and worth paying attention to. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll have more